keep an open mind. The answer should never be no. The answer should be, I'm not sure, but we're going to figure out how we're going to do that thing or how to make it work. People come to us with ideas that we would have never thought of, but they know that we're open to it and we can hopefully make something happen.
Hello and welcome to Run the Business, the podcast that explores the place where running and leadership come together. We'll find out how running can help us with leading, connecting with people, and generally being better in business. We'll also try and answer that question, do runners make better leaders? I'm Anthony Gay, and today I'm joined by a business leader who's also the co-founder of the Around the Crown 10K race in Charlotte, North Carolina. Around the Crown's mission is to promote the simple act of putting one foot in front of the other to move Charlotte forward. Its purpose is to show that running can make you healthier, happier, and more confident with no regard to age, cultural differences, gender, pace, or experience. He's also completed some big runs himself over the last couple of years, challenging himself and doing research for his own event as well. Now, if you're a runner who's also involved with organizing a local running event, this conversation could be really, really interesting. Brian Mister, welcome to Run the Business.
Thanks so much for having me. This is exciting. It's always fun to hear the intro from other people on what gets picked up out there in the world. So I love it. Thank you so much for having me.
And how are you doing today, Brian?
I'm doing great. I'm on my second cup of coffee. Kids are at school. Gonna go biking and running a little bit later today. So it's a pretty good day.
Tell us a little bit about where you are in the world and that question that we always ask at the beginning. When did you last go running and what's the space around you like for running?
Yeah, so I am in Charlotte, North Carolina. It's getting pretty hot here already. I think it's getting mid-80s today. Running around me is pretty solid. We've got some good trails around here, sidewalks on most of the roads around me, or at least it's easy to find them, and it's fun to mix in a little gravel every now and then as you're out running on the sidewalks. And the last time I ran was yesterday. I have had a running streak going since January 1st of 2020. So I'm at like 1,200 days in or something like that now. So I go running every single day.
So let's just pause and just reflect on that. So you've ran every single day since January the 1st, 2020.
Yeah, and my stipulations around it, because I think certain people have different versions of streaking, is it needs to be at least 1 mile. It has to be outside, and it has to be at least a 13:45 minute per mile pace or faster. Wow.
And was there ever a point in that streak that you thought it was going to end? Or what's the closest you've been to going, it's not going to happen today?
We're going to get real personal already in this conversation. I had a vasectomy not too long ago, and because I have 3 kids, and we were ready to put a pause on that, the family, or stop on the family. And I wasn't sure how that was going to go, and had a pretty long conversation with a urologist about that. And it was rather hilarious, and reaching that 13:45 minute per mile goal was difficult, but got it done. And here we are. So I think over the 1,100, 1,200 days, whatever it's been now, I think my average miles per day is like 4 miles per day is what I've been averaging between ultras and marathons. And then the weeks where it's just a mile each day and I'm only getting 7 miles in for the week.
Well, we have got so much to talk about, and that's just introduced a new element to the conversation. Yeah. So to start with, tell us a little bit about the Around the Crown and why you chose to set up a race.
Yeah, so I've been in the running industry for a little over 10 years now, in different shapes or forms. I started at a brewery, actually, and in Charlotte, and honestly, I'll say in North Carolina, there was a couple run clubs that met at breweries or bars, and I thought, man, that's kind of cool, and I was already running from the brewery I was working at. So I wanted to see if other people wanted to meet there after work. And then when we were done, grab a beer. And the experience was more about the social setting of grabbing a beer afterwards. And if we ran together at a 9-minute pace, awesome. If we ran together at a 12-minute pace, awesome. It didn't really matter. It was more about the social aspect of it. And the first week we had 3 people, the next week 13, the following 30. And then it quickly went to a couple hundred people were meeting. And we created a 5K out of it. And that's when I knew, man, this is a really cool industry. I need to check this out more. So I went on to work at there's a place here in Charlotte called the U.S. National Whitewater Center that has about 50 miles of trails. I was a race director and marketing director out there for a while. Went on to the Charlotte Marathon, where I was marketing director there with a local running shop as well. And then my wife and I just kind of had that itch to start our own thing. And we had this idea about shutting down our local highway to put runners out on it. And kind of just jumped off the edge of a cliff, hoping we could figure out how to build the plane as we were flying down, and worked it out. And we've been having fun ever since. So the basis of the race is it's a 10K that goes around Charlotte or around the crown. Our skyline looks very much like a queen's crown, and we are known as the Queen City. And it's half of it is on the highway on I-277, the inner beltway here, and half of it goes through downtown or uptown Charlotte. And it's a good time. We have about 5,000-6,000 people do it each year. This will be our 5th year of it. Made it through the pandemic, which was a happy success there, and got to pivot a little bit, but had fun throughout the entire time.
Let's dig into the community part of running and business as well, because that's so important to you, isn't it? Your run, it's not just about a one-off standalone set piece of a race. It's about bringing Charlotte together. So tell us a bit more about why the community is at the center of what you do and what goals you have there.
Yeah, definitely. So we are the race itself is on a day a year, one of the 365 days, but we operate all days. We are an evergreen event marketing company, if you want to call us that, that just happens to have one conclusionary event kind of thing. So we noticed in the market in Charlotte and the Southeast that there really wasn't a big running race in North Carolina or in Charlotte, one that you could really hang your hat on, where if you look at the rest of the Southeast, in Atlanta, you have the Peachtree Road Race, which is amazing. In South Carolina or in Charleston, you have Cooper River Bridge Run. And then in Tennessee, you have a great race. And in Virginia, you have a great race. And North Carolina just didn't have that keystone race. So we wanted to create that for our community, because we noticed that in Charlotte, so many people were training here in our city on our beautiful greenways and our trails, but then they'd go elsewhere to have that big race, be it for fun or be it for a PR. It still just felt like people were leaving our city to go knock out that super awesome favorite race. And we kind of wanted to change that because we were tired of driving as well to go to these races. And we loved our city so much that we wanted to showcase that. So we did that through our partners, our beneficiaries, our sponsors, our mission. Everything is based around Charlotte. So I think something like 95% of our sponsors are Charlotte or North Carolina based. The only big one that is not is Brooks Running. And obviously they're out in Seattle, and we don't have a running company of that size in North Carolina. So we're fortunate to work with them, but then all of our other sponsors are either Charlotte headquartered or within one of the cities that surround us, within 15, 20 miles. And same with our beneficiaries. We are dripping in love for our city, Charlotte. So we are just trying to give it back to the amazing running community that's here.
Give me a flavor of what that brings back to Charlotte. What sort of tangible difference have you seen it make to the community?
I feel like it makes an easier conversation when it comes to sponsorship. I'll start there, and I think we can take that a couple different ways. But when you can prove to a runner that when I'm talking about a sponsor, it's not just because they give us money to do this thing, it's because they truly believe in their city. And we have that conversation with these sponsors early on, and we are picking and choosing who we're going to ask for the support of the running community. And then when we tell that story back to the runners, it's completely transparent and true, because we know that these companies agree with what we're trying to do. And it makes it so fun when you can tell that story of a business in the community to the runners that they may not have heard before, and why they love their city so much. And you get to be that voice for them. It's really genuine.
And if you rewind back to the beginning of your running experience, when did it start for you in your life? When did you become a runner?
I played soccer growing up, and I was always like outside midi, and which pretty much means you're okay at soccer, but really you're just out there to wear other people down, because you're just going to run up and down the field and play offense and defense. And I think through that, after playing 90 minutes, I would get done and still have energy, and really I'd get the ball every now and then just cross it back into the middle, and then just have to sprint back to defense. And I recognized that it was, not only was I not tired, but I was having fun doing it. And went into a 5K at a younger age. I don't know. I would guess like 11 or 12. And I, who knows what time was or anything like that. I'm sure I walked a ton of it, but really loved it. And from there, gosh, I'm trying to think. Went into college and did some soccer there, just like intramural stuff, nothing big, and got into running there and got into cycling a little bit too. And since then, I feel like I've just been kind of doing races every now and then for fun, be it with my wife or pushing one of our kids in a stroller. And it's always been for fun. It's hardly ever for the competition side of things, of seeing how fast I can go or anything like that. It's always just been for the love of moving forward. So it's been a couple decades now, but it was never, one shining moment that stands out of like, hey, here's the race or here's the thing. It's just been always kind of a part of my life. And I think in the recent, let's just say the recent 10 years, it's become more of the forefront of what I'm doing in family and in business and everything else. So it's fun to see it kind of pop its head up now.
I should say this podcast is not aimed solely at people in the actual business of running, but it does make an interesting perspective for a conversation. How did you go from that love of running and that feeling that, hey, I enjoy this is fun, to making a business out of something you love? Because you mentioned some of the other jobs that you'd had in the sort of run up to sort of taking on the Around the Crown. So tell me about how that came about and you got into that space.
Yeah. When I was in college at UNC Charlotte here in town, that's what brought me into the city. I had tried out a few majors because I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do. In high school, I had tested in the like drafting and architecture world and enjoyed it because I think I just like played with Legos so much growing up that I was like, yeah, this is probably what I want to do. And then quickly found out that marketing was my love, but didn't know about sports marketing really until like my senior year. And I kind of dabbled in it a little bit, but I think traditional sports marketing is the basketball and the baseball and the football. So I didn't think much about it. And then I got that job at the brewery. At first it was just bartending. And then brought up to them like, hey, I've got a degree in marketing. It'd be fun if a role ever opened that I could do something with this. And thankfully, the owner and my boss, her degree was in sports marketing as well. So she started talking to me about it a little bit. And then I came to them with the idea of we should have a run club here. And I think that would be beneficial. I think it can bring us business. We'll do it on our slowest night of the week so it doesn't affect other people coming in. And without me really understanding it, I think I got into sports marketing more because of the owner there of that brewery, of Noda Brewing here in Charlotte, who's now a sponsor of Around the Crown and everything else. I've really got to thank her, Susie, who kind of showed me this world. And then from there, I went on to work those other jobs like I talked about, and very fortunate for those. But then I think it came to my father owned a small business, and I grew up doing woodworking with him as our small business. And I think I wanted to fall back in love with that, of the owning your own small business and making your own decisions. And if someone's going to tell you no, it's going to be yourself. It won't be anyone else when you have some silly idea to include sustainability into a running race or whatever else you might have. Like, let yourself be the only one to kind of block you, not someone else. And that's what made us, I think, start our own small business and then work into Around the Crown and some other races that we're now over and having some fun there. So yeah, long answer, but I feel so fortunate to be in sports marketing, and I'm now getting to share that with local high schools and colleges, going in to talk to people about the non-traditional side of sports marketing, if you will.
Let's talk a moment about the benefits that you get from running, because this podcast talks, we talk to a lot of people who, sort of about the mental health benefits, the physical benefits, the goal setting that they do in running. When did you start to notice things from the running that you were doing that helped you in the business side of things?
Yeah, I mean, I'll go into the business in a second, but the mental health side of it, I noticed about 3.5 months in on we'll just go with the streak section of all this, what I've talked about, because I said I started on January 1st, 2020, not knowing what was to come in 2020. So then mid-March or so when things started shutting down, I was like, gosh, the only thing I still kind of have going that I know that's going to go every day is this run. And it became something I really fell back on in a good way of like, gosh, I'm going to go on a run today. And that's when I know everything is normal-ish. We'll put a big quotes around that. But it was nice to have that solidarity each day. And I would create my own little challenges around it, be it like, I don't know, a friend had a child who was 7.7 pounds, 8 ounces, and I'd go run 7.8 miles. And I would make my own little challenges around things that would give me a reason to run that day, which was really fun. And then from the business side of things, I mean, gosh, it's so fun to get to travel the country and check out some other races, be it the Chicago Marathon and seeing how they're bringing in 30,000 people to this amazing city and what it looks like from a transportation standpoint and sustainability and volunteers and partnerships, to be able to see behind the scenes and talk to some of the people that help direct that race, all the way to some of the, in the trail world, the ultra scene, and seeing what they're doing with sponsors and seeing how their aid stations are set up, because it's completely different than a running race on the road. It's been fun to just travel and see how different communities do it, different cities do it, different race directors do it. And I feel like I'm constantly absorbing as much as I can out in the running and honestly the cycling space too. It's fun to see what's done now that I think gravel cycling is becoming pretty large. Not I think, I know it's becoming pretty large, and seeing what that's looking like, it's so fun. I feel lucky to have that as my job.
You mentioned some of the races you've been to, the places that on your tour to pick up information on how other runs are put on. You also took part, I'm right in saying, in some pretty big runs across the last couple of years, some long ones. Tell us about those.
Yeah, certainly. I'm actually I'm drinking out of my Javelina 100 coffee mug right now, which is a 100-miler in just outside of Phoenix, Arizona, which is thankfully where a lot of my in-laws are, so I get to travel out there pretty often. And that was a 100-miler 5-loop right around Halloween each year. They do that. It's one of the longer running ultras in the country. I think this is the 20th year of it. Which obviously there's some longer ones out there, be it Hard Rock or Western States. But Javelina and the Aravaipa racing team, running company who puts that on, does such an amazing job. And it's fun to see how they incorporate sponsors and things like that. And from a sustainability standpoint, I feel like the trail world is leading that scene. It's fun to see as road races are starting to bring in some of the things that the trail world has been doing for 5-10 years, be it cupless water stations or other pieces of this. You care a lot more about the place you're running in when you can see it in the natural habitat, not like on the road. Like I feel like, unfortunately, we're used to seeing trash on the road. You're not used to seeing trash in a national park or a desert. So therefore you don't want it. And it's nice to be able to bring some of that over into the road running side of things too. So I did that one back in October. Also did Chicago Marathon back in October. I've got another 100-miler in November in West Virginia, which I'm excited for. And I've done, a few 50-milers over the last couple of years. And again, it's more about the love of running and not always the speed of it, but just being out there on your feet for 12 to 20 hours at a time, which I know sounds silly, but man, it's when you find that one thing you love, you just can't stop doing it.
And that thing that you love, the running that you love, what is the driver? Why do you love it? What do you get out of it?
Man, the one thing I love, and not necessarily, I won't say like get out of it, but the funny part, if you look at this from a parenting standpoint, when I'm running, there's no one pulling on my leg to ask me a question or why or no or this or that. All I have to do is move my foot in front of the other one. And it's a pretty easy task compared to parenting sometimes. And I absolutely love parenting. My kids are amazing. They do a lot of these races with us in some shape or form. But when you think of running, it's such a simple task, and it's so fun to just do that for a day sometimes. But the other side that I get out of it is, I think we hear this quite a bit, but the capabilities of our bodies seem to be endless. And it's so fun to figure out what some of those limits are, what's close to those limits, or what the next thing is that our bodies can do. And it's enjoyable to see how powerful the human body is.
And does your wife run as well?
She does. She does. She's when we got married, we started trying to do a half marathon in every state, and I think that really got me more into it. I think she was more into it when we first met, and then I found out her family's really into it, and I've done some runs with them as well. Her brother and sister-in-law and a couple other people, and her mom, who's done our race every year now, which is pretty fun. She travels out from Phoenix, Arizona, to do ours and watch our kids and everything else. Yeah, so we've been running quite a bit. She just did half marathon a couple days ago.
And
actually.
is she? Am I right in thinking she works with you in putting on Around the Crown? So it's a real family business in that sense.
Yeah, I think work is a loose term, only because she is the one who has the full-time job that brings in the insurance and all that side of things for our three little ones. So she has a full-time job that is not our company, but she does all of our design and branding work. So I like to say she takes my stupid ideas and makes them look really, really good. So all of the branding choices, be it our website or our social or our tent or our car app or anything, she is the one behind that makes it look very, very professional and consistent, honestly, consistent and clean. She's very good at what she does.
And how do you manage that relationship of working so closely with your other half and balance that with the business needs as well?
Yeah, it's hilarious sometimes, but it because all this started before we had kids, we were just doing it for fun at nights. We'd get done. Both of us had our full-time jobs, and then in the evenings we were like working diligently on starting this company, and we were just doing it nonstop. So it became a large part of our lives, and we were just both passionate about it because I think we got to do our separate parts really well, where she was doing the branding and I was doing the logistical side of how do you shut down a highway? How do we bring in sponsors for this? What's the P&L on figuring out, okay, well, we got to charge this because shirts are this price and blah, blah, blah. So we each got to kind of work on our own thing that then melded back together. And we both love our city so much that we saw the benefits of this. What we thought we would knew the benefits were early on. And now we're seeing truly what these possibilities could be of making this keystone race in our city that we love so much.
Who inspires you in leadership and who gets you going? Who gives you energy?
Oh man, that's a good one. She is definitely there. My wife, Chelsea, definitely inspiring from watching her manage a full-time job, handle the branding, and just be an amazing mother to our three kids. I think she's up there for sure. I've got some friends now at Peachtree Road Race with Atlanta Track Club down in Georgia that I lean on every now and then, and I just watch what they do, and it's very impressive to see the largest race in the world be only a couple hours down a highway for us to see how they're doing some cool stuff. And then honestly, I feel like I've got some friends that are now our sponsors, but they're high up in sports marketing companies, and they have a love for running, and they're able to bring that into these, be it a larger bank or a mortgage firm or something like that, being able to see how they're taking their business into their passions, but it's not like they work at a running business. They just happen to be in love with endurance sports and they bring that into their business. It's one of those things where you say like, oh man, when I grow up, I want to do that. And I think I feel that way sometimes about seeing how they're able to take these companies that are not in the running space, but bring them into that because it is their passion. And it's pretty cool to watch that. So an odd answer, but I think that's why we partner with some of these people.
What have you learned across the last few years? If you had to pick a lesson, two lessons that you would share as tips for anybody listening to this that is thinking about putting on an event or a running event, what are the biggest things you've learned since the beginning?
Keep an open mind. The answer should never be no. The answer should be, I'm not sure, but we're going to figure out how we're going to do that thing or how to make it work. If it's a inclusive, friendly idea for our community, we're going to figure out how to make it work. The answer is not going to be no. We're just going to figure out how to incorporate this new idea that someone has brought us and make it a better race. And I think through that, we've been able to bring a lot of stuff, a lot of new ideas to our race. But then also, I think the community has realized that we are pretty transparent with what we're working on, faults that we've had. And they are more open to coming to us with feedback. You know, if we do something wrong, we're extremely open to feedback. And then also, people come to us with ideas that we would have never thought of, but they know that we're open to it, and we can hopefully make something happen within the running community because of the resources that we have now. And they know us to be kind of this change maker in the city, and it's pretty fun to have this different mindset, but then people lean on that as well. So when we bring an idea of having a cupless water stop, that there's not a pushback anymore. It's just, wow, this is so cool. Like, we always wanted this, and yeah, there's probably going to be some hurdles with it, but we know that they'll figure it out, kind of thing. And that's pretty fun to have a community trust you like that. So yeah, open to feedback, I think, is a big part of that, and that transparency side of things.
Mm-hmm. And let's talk about sustainability, because it's huge, obviously, around the world in everything we do, but it's huge in mass participation events as well, and running events. What are you doing in that space? And tell us about the important things you've changed. You mentioned the cupless, around the Cranberry cupless event. What other stuff do you do?
Yeah, a lot of it started from a company here in Charlotte called Recover Brands. They handle all of our participant t-shirts, our volunteer t-shirts, our kids race t-shirts, and they make their shirts out of 8 plastic bottles. So they do, now they do socks, hats. They're doing all kinds of different tops, so short sleeve, long sleeve, sweatshirts, all kinds of cool stuff that we use for merchandise now, along with Brooks. And they're local to Charlotte. All their manufacturing for the majority of their products is here in North Carolina. So from a shipping standpoint, they're sustainable as well. And they were kind of how we started, of making sure we're thoughtful when it comes to this, one of the larger expenses you have in a business, your t-shirts, for at least mass participation events. And then from there, they kind of opened our eyes to some other things. And again, just being that open to that idea of feedback and suggestions, they showed us some other things, and then from there it just kind of kept growing. So it grew into the cupless water stops. So all of our water stops, we utilize these like kind of silicone rubber cups from a company called Hiccup in Florida. And they, from the runner standpoint, it feels like a normal water stop. You pick up your cup, you throw it in the trash can, you move on. Except we take that trash can, give it back to them. They take it to a commercial dishwasher, clean them up, and get them ready for the next race. So there's no waste at the water stations. And then at the finish line, we partner with a local grocer here called Harris Teeter. And we make sure that all of our food is compostable, and we use a local composting company to take any of the food waste, be it orange peels or banana peels or peach pits or whatever it might be. And we compost all of that through a local company called Crowntown Compost. I'm trying to think what else. We're in the first year, we're still working to get back to it because of the pandemic. There's still some issues, but the first year we utilized our local water utility company, Charlotte Water, and we were able to tap into the fire hydrants and use the water from there versus bringing in containers of water to fill up the water at the aid stations too. We now have since got some products called water monsters, which you see like kind of in the trail world more, but they're massive, I don't know, they're like 50-gallon jugs pretty much that have 8 taps around the outside of them for you to fill up water. And you can use a hydrant to fill those up after you've cleaned and tested and cleaned again the water, and you can filter that as it comes in. So steps like that, we're really working on from the sustainability standpoint. And then there's quite a bit more. I mean, one of the other small things I'll mention is the timing company we work with start to finish here in Charlotte. We cut down the size of our bib in half. So we use half the amount of paper now or Tyvek material. And we found a way to recycle Tyvek as well, where what was a pretty big waste is now half, if not even less of a waste than what it was before. So it's just small things. It's not making major changes overnight. It's happening over years and making sure we can do it the right way. And it's worked out well. And like I was saying before, the community has really respected that and jumped on board.
It's about the small differences, small changes, though, isn't it? These the solutions to these issues. They're not going to be solved in big, dramatic moves necessarily. It's just everybody doing the smaller things, and everything you've mentioned there, I think, sounds amazing. Together, it's really powerful, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And our next step in this is we've joined. It's called Low Impact Alliance. It's a group of retailers and running companies like be that Brooks or On or Hoka, and event management companies as well that are trying to be more sustainable and share best practices. So we've joined them and working to share everything that we're doing, but then also learn what other companies are doing. And the next step of that is this year at our race in September, we're going to host a kind of just like an open discussion panel on a lot of things, be that sustainability, inclusivity, timing practices, just different pieces of that, and hopefully share this to even more race directors, people that can come, but then also we're going to be broadcasting that through our YouTube page and Instagram to teach more people or educate them on some ideas that they can do, again, like you said, that aren't super crazy. You just need someone to maybe show you who the vendor is or talk to you about the language that you need to use on your website to make sure people fully understand what you're going to be doing and that it won't be harder for them. It's just a little bit better step for the environment.
And in terms of that race director community, is that, I mean, you sound like you're a fantastic networker, a fantastic people person, and you're soaking up inspiration from other places and connecting with people. Am I right in thinking that? And how easy is it for somebody's listening to this who's a race director of an event in their town? Where do they go to connect with other people in a similar position?
Yeah, for sure. And thank you for saying that, and completely agree. Definitely all for collaboration over competition, be that in the race on race day or be that in talking to the race directors and sharing best practices. I fully believe that the rising tide floats all ships. I don't think that we can take away from one another at this point. I think there's enough runners out there to do a race every single weekend. So why not help one another do that? As far as where to go for communities, honestly, I think a good part of it is podcasts. We've been fortunate enough to jump on some of these amazing podcasts like yours to talk about this. And I'd love to share my email address at the end of this or Instagram handle or whatever's best. To have people reach out. And in the past, that's worked really well. I think there's a couple communities out there, like I was saying, like Low Impact Alliance is a good one. There is the, what is it? The RIDC, the Running and Diversity Coalition, for learning about inclusivity and what that looks like. And I think there's a lot of those that are out there that can be super helpful. And another big thing we do to get ideas is honestly social media. We're following a ton of really cool accounts across the country and across the world that we think are doing things right, and we want to bring it to Charlotte, and we reach out to them to say, hey, how'd this work for you, or how'd that work for you, and how could we do it in our city? So I think just start asking, because I feel like most race directors want to help one another.
And where does Park Run sort of sit in that space for you? Of I'm assuming you've kind of seen the success of that over the last few years, and what's your thoughts on what they've done for getting people running?
Yeah, so Park Run just came to Charlotte. It might be less than like 6 months, if I understand it correctly. A gentleman who heads up our Charlotte Running Club helped start that on one of the greenways here. And it seems like it's going great. I haven't had a chance to make it to one of them. And the main reason is just because I'm a parent of 3 kids. So the weekends are a little bit harder for me. And typically it's on Saturday morning here. But from what I've seen on Instagram and posts on social media, it seems as though there's a pretty big following with that here in Charlotte, and jumping on the greenways to go out and just do a free run and get into a no barriers entry group run. And I think it's a great thing to just kind of, tap your toe into what it looks like into that racing world. It's wonderful.
Let's bring it back to you. I kind of want to talk about what you personally get from running and how it makes you a better person and a better leader. I was going to say, do you notice the days when you haven't been running and the different you obviously have been running every day. So that question is irrelevant. But can you feel the benefits, both physically and mentally?
Oh, yeah.
And let's speak about those. What sort of person are you, and how's it helped you be a better person when you're running?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as you mentioned, of course, like running every day, it's hard to notice the off day and the on day, but really I can notice how I am as a parent before I run versus how I am a parent after I run. And I'm recharged after I run. I'm able to go back to being a kid again with my kids. And not saying like, I'm some terrible parent beforehand, but I definitely notice that I'm a better parent afterwards. And it's like I've checked that box for the day and now I'm ready to move on almost. So it's like that recharge point for me of, one, the parenting side of it, but two, on some of these longer runs. And when I say longer, I only mean like, I don't know, more than a half hour, where you get out of your head that you're going on a run and you get into your head on what else is going on in your world. And it allows me to think about our business and think about what's going on and explore our city, to see other people out in it and using our sidewalks and using our greenways and really think about them. So I use it as this kind of like silent time to only think about fun new ideas when I get to, again, like over a half hour or so of running, and it's really fun.
Can you think of any runs where an idea came to you or you solved a problem? Is there any points where you kind of reflect and go, I remember when we did that, or I did that run and that idea came out?
I'm trying to think. I mean, the whole basis for Around the Crown kind of happened on a run and kind of happened like on a drive a little bit. We were coming home from a concert one night and we were on the major inner beltway, I-277, where our race is at. And we were stuck in traffic, and it was like 10 o'clock on a Thursday night. It's like, why is there traffic out here right now? Like, this doesn't make sense. We should be able to get right home. Honey, I'm getting out of the car and I'm going to go run down the highway and I'll beat you home, kind of thing. And thankfully my wife didn't let me do that. But it made us start to think about this idea of shutting the highway down. And I feel like there were runs after that where little pieces of it started clicking together, of like what we're going to call it. Where's the start finish going to be? I started exploring the downtown area of our city in a different way, thinking about where would a fun start finish line be? Where would the roads be that aren't these major roads, but do show off a different part of our city? And since then, we've taken that to a whole other idea of exploring your city on 2 feet versus in your car, and now trying to show people different parts of our city through that. So it's exactly the question that you're asking, just showing that now out to other people, to show them different parts of the city, for them to get to think about it differently, and hopefully, like you're asking, like things click for them in a different way.
And what do the goals look like? Is it about more people taking part? Is it about more community involvement, sponsorship? What sort of, as you look to the future of Around the Crown, where's it going to go?
I think we still have a larger goal for numbers. We're probably going to hit like 6,000 or 6,500 people this year. I would love to be at that like 10,000 mark. And I think much beyond that, I'd be afraid that it'd get out of my hands and I wouldn't be able to just manage it as myself, and we'd need a larger company and have to do some other things. But that to me sounds like a good number for our city to get more people involved each year, knowing that we have about a 20% retention rate on it, that many new people would come back each year and make it a family tradition and things like that. So that's pretty exciting to think about growing, a little bit more. And then as far as like other growth goes, I mentioned earlier, but we're starting to acquire a couple other races around the city and think about this idea of I don't want to say like a series in the traditional sense, but just have other races throughout the year that lead you to the Around the Crown, but more importantly, show you different parts of the city, where the races that we're looking at acquiring and starting are purposefully in different neighborhoods around our city, and in different parts of the year as well, to think of Around the Crown in a different way. Right now, that's the name of a race because you go on this major highway, but what if you ran around the Crown in different parts of the Crown City, the Queen City? So starting to kind of play with that a little bit more too, of that kind of growth as well.
It's quite an enviable position to be in, to be doing something that you obviously are so passionate about and love, and it be a business as well. And it's one of the things we talk about on this podcast around, being able to do things that you love, that fit in with your values and purpose. Because if you're not doing that, it's the questions about, well, what's the point of it all come in? But just from talking to you across, the while, it's obvious that this is really aligned with who you are as a person and your values.
Yeah, it is very fun for us. And as you're mentioning, like I feel fortunate to be a part of this industry, be a part of this community, and hopefully make a little bit of a difference in our city. As you mentioned, our mission and our purpose of just moving our city forward one step at a time, and doing that for all parts of our city too, I think is a big part of it as well. And it's so rewarding.
Brian, running aside, can you name a business tool, an app, maybe even a person, something that you couldn't do without from a business perspective?
Gosh, it's funny. The first thing that came to mind when you said app was Strava. I feel like I've been on there forever, and I know now it's commonplace when it comes to the running industry. But I use that thing like nonstop for fun, be it for business. Honestly, like our club that's on there for Around the Crown is second to Instagram when it comes to marketing. It's larger than our Facebook following. It's larger than our website, or not larger than our website, but it's up there right behind Instagram when it comes to, from a business standpoint. We use Strava quite a bit, be it a Strava segment challenge or a post about an upcoming event that we're going to do. We use the route function on there all the time. That one's super fun. And then we've been working a lot with our registration platform, Race Roster. That's who we use for registration. We're now using their tracking links that they have in there for UTMs and seeing how that's converting for paid social and our newsletters going out. And they've been really fun to work with.
Mm-hmm. And business aside, can you name your favorite bit of running kit or running accessory that you can't do without?
Man, this is a silly one, but I think everyone knows it about me these days, or at least once I see it or once I say it, people are like, oh yeah, I've never seen you without that thing. It's a hat. I love a good running hat. I have way too many hats, and I absolutely collect them, and I don't even know why some days, but I go into a running store, I go into a new business or something like that, and I got to check out their hats, be it running hats or not. I just constantly love a good running hat, be it for the rain and wind that can come on a run sometimes, or be it for the sunshine, but love a good running hat.
Question I've got around your streak, and I've got to ask this before we finish. Is there? Do you feel a pressure to continue this streak? Now, I mean, 1st of January 2020. We're in 2020. Nearly halfway through 2023. That's a long streak. I mean, how long is it going to go for? And have you thought how it might feel when it stops?
Yeah, I mentioned it earlier and I said, hey, we're going to get personal real quick. I thought about it then of like, man, it might stop. Like, what's this going to look like? And I think there was only like a brief, 3 seconds that I was sad about it. And then the next thing that came to mind is like, how fun is it going to be to create some new challenge? And I think that goes back to the entrepreneur in me a little bit of sometimes it's almost the fun of it is creating the thing and not always managing the thing. So the idea of creating some new challenge kind of came to head when I wasn't sure if I would be able to keep the streak going. But I don't see it ending anytime soon. I get to the end of the day and if I haven't run and it's like the sun's going down, I feel like I start like scratching a little bit and I have to get out there. Whereas, most days I'm doing it mid-morning or afternoon. So there's hardly ever am I making it to the evening. And I feel like at this point too, my wife will like ping in and be like, hey, honey, you haven't run yet today. Do you realize that? So she'll kind of ping me in there too. But I don't think I see it ending anytime soon. There's a few people here in Charlotte that also do it, and we kind of check in on each other every now and then. There's a really large run club here called Mad Miles Run Club, and the founder, Cornell, started it January 1st of 2019, so he's got a year on me. And him and I go back and forth on, crappy weather or whatever it might be that may stop us, and we're like, nah, let's go. So
he started his streak on January 1st, 2019. Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a year on me, so I'll never catch up to the guy. But it's fun. We can at least commiserate with each other sometimes.
Final question, Brian. What advice would you give to anybody listening to this who's in a business or a leadership role and they're considering getting more active and specifically taking up running? What would you say?
Oh man, take that first step. Do it. Now, it doesn't need to be starting an LLC, or it doesn't need to be running 26 miles. But take the first step and see where it leads you. I think that's the fun in it, and you've got to recognize that you don't have to go full in on running or starting a business. But why not take that first step, or maybe the better way to say it is take that next step, whatever that might be. You've thought about it for a while. When you go out on your next walk, jog 50 feet. If you're thinking about starting your own race, just send an email to a local race director and see what it's like. Whatever that might be, just start the conversation to go have coffee with someone or go take that next step. I guarantee if you put yourself out there, someone's going to say, yep, I was there once, let's do it together. I'm going to pick you up and let's go have fun on this run on this local trail I've been to, or let's grab coffee and I'd love to talk to you about the fun of starting a company. But take that next step.
That's great advice, because unless you put yourself out there, stuff just doesn't happen, does it? You got to be out there and putting yourself in a position for these things to happen.
Yeah, for sure. It's vulnerability, but it's also openness. You start holding yourself a little more accountable, and I think there's so much positive to that vulnerability and transparency.
Absolutely. Brian, thank you so much for your time. Good luck with this year's Around the Crown, which I believe is coming up in September, isn't it? Is that right?
Yeah, less than 5 months out.
5 months out. I'm sure prep is already well underway. And good luck with your continued running streak as well. We will put all the details in the show notes if people want to connect and follow, maybe even take part in Around the Crown. Everything will be on there for people to check into. It's been inspiring to catch up, so thank you for your time.
And I really appreciate you having me on today. This is super fun.
Thanks to Brian Mister for his time on Run the Business this week. A man with a 1,200 day plus running streak. I'll say that again, 1,200 consecutive days running. That is impressive. Brian is a great example for me of doing work that you're passionate about, things that you believe in, and not just living to work. I can imagine how Brian's vision and his enthusiasm is infectious to be around. Community and collaboration are two things I'm taking away from that conversation. Brian's willingness to engage and connect with people came across as so powerful. Collaboration over competition was a phrase he used. A great point, and something that I think the running space does really well. Personally, I think business has got better at this, especially in fields like diversity and inclusion and sustainability. But it's a good point to consider. In the sector that you work in, when does joining together with your competitors make things better for everyone? Is there a win-win rather than seeing success as something where there has to be a loser? I remember from my many years working in commercial radio, it was always about beating your competitor radio station, whoever that was. Success was about your listening figures going up and the competitor's figures going down. That was the measure. But that narrow measure of success and competition gets blown apart when you start to see competitors as music streaming services or podcasting. The marketplace changed, and that whole space has changed enormously over the last few years in ways that most people couldn't have imagined a decade ago. And I guess the point I'm making here is that sometimes collaboration might be a better way to strengthen your future position in the market sector that you're in. Something that runners and running events do very well. So, do you have any competitors in business that you've been considering collaborating with, and maybe now is the time to have a coffee with and see where it goes? Maybe. And long may Brian's running streak continue. 1,200 days is impressive, but it had to start somewhere, didn't it? What could you do today that would mark the beginning of something special in your life? And maybe today, maybe listening to this podcast is the point that you start that journey. Have a think about that one. If you're enjoying Run the Business, please follow, share, and comment, as it really helps grow the show. So do that now if you can. Thanks to Anna Harding and Chris Kelly for producing and for providing the inspiration for the show as well. It's fantastic. I really appreciate it. I'm Anthony Gay, and until next time, keep running and keep chasing your goals.